Good morning. So rude of me. Good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you may be. But I also thought, how fun would it be for me to answer some questions? Like, I think AuthorTube questions are very basic, and I don't think about answering questions about, when you first started, and because I've been writing for 20 years. I've been published since 2008. So I'm going to read off, or I'm going to cheat a little bit. And it says, okay, so what made you want to be a writer? I was actually influenced to write by, let's see, who was it? Kate London, Kate Logan. She was a Harlequin author. I have lost contact with her, but she asked me about my background, my stories. I was all about, at that point in time, I was a full-time psychic. So, she's going, you ought to write some of those stories down. You should write some of those stories down. And I'm going, NDAs and all that. Who wants to mess with it? But okay, so I did. And here we come again. Here we go again. It's been a while. Anyway, my first book. And so what made you want to be a writer? It was actually writing that first book. And then I think, actually, it was in high school. I used to write really short ballads. I would go to school, I'd have my experience for the day, then I'd come back home, and it was like, I could write about this boy, or I could write about that couple, and I would, maybe a page. It wouldn't be very long. And then that was like on repeat. And then I fancied myself in love. So then I started writing love poems about different things. And so I guess maybe back then, but I never did anything with it. And then when my husband, who at the time was still just my best friend, we started dating like when I was 15. He went into the Marines, I went into the Navy, and I married a sailor, but we still corresponded and talked and hung out when we were in the same area. He sent me a Writer's Digest. That was a magazine, glossy cover and pictures, and he says, I really think you need to investigate this. Think about all the stories you're able to tell. So he put the bug in my ear, and I went and I picked up a small journal, something like this, and I started writing a romance. And I put in a lot of my farming background into this romance. Maybe 18 months later, I was getting close to the end of the story, and my sailor husband, anyway, he didn't quite approve. So long story short, we didn't do anything with it until after I divorced and I had married my best friend, the Marine. So at that point, he bought me a typewriter, and I started researching on, how do you do that? And then babies took over, and I was running my own business at the time, so it went on the back burner. Then he brought a computer into the house. I mean, this was I don't know, maybe not pre, but it was right at the very beginning where AOL was just beginning to come into the living room, and we were on Comcast or something like that. So with that, I started writing again, and then I was able to save it in files and not lose it and not have, you know, kids draw on it and all that kind of stuff. So, okay, that's what made me want to be a writer. And in 2008, I published my first erotic. It wasn't just romance. It had a plot. It had a very thick plot, but it was very erotic. And then I started selling short stories, and I finished Here We Go Again. When was that? I guess that was in 2016, 2017. Recently, I redid titles, and I did a whole new branding with them. So, no, I'm not on Amazon yet, but I'll get my author page up, and I'll get my books all together and get them up. So they will be, I guess the new date for publishing will probably be this year. I'm working with I don't know what she calls herself. A rebranding assistant? I don't know what she calls herself, but she does a good job, and I really like working with her. Okay, so when did you know you wanted to be a writer? Today. Every day. Because, you know, sometimes you just wake up and think, oh, I quit. But every day you wake up. How did you learn to write? Trial and error. I just did it. In fact, the first critique group I belonged to, I had a really nasty, one of the guys in the group was really nasty, and he sent me back. He translated it into Greek and then sent it back to me. He thought it was cute. But others were telling me that I was mixing tenses, and I wasn't using punctuation properly. I was using it the way I was taught in school, way back in the day. So, yeah, it was rough. But when you have a critique partner, make sure that you don't want the kind of critique partner says, oh, I like that, send me more. That's not helpful. But having it on the extreme where they translate everything into Greek and then send it back to you, that's definitely not helpful. You need someone that says, oh, the premise of the story is really good. You need to work on this area. You have too many was and ing words together, or you have too many passive voice. And then give you an example of your own writing, what passive is, and then show you what an active sentence is. So they would take your sentence, I was reading a book. That would be the passive. And then they would switch it around to say, I read the book in 2 hours. I was reading the book. I read that book in 2 hours. See the difference? Yeah, it took me a while because I didn't have people willing to help me that way. I had the, oh, send me more, and the fuddy-duddy who, translated everything into Greek and then sent it back to me. No, he spoke English only. What are my favorite books to read? When I first started writing, my favorite books were nonfiction. I read nonfiction constantly. Now, I want a good, cozy mystery, or I want a really steamy romance. Not very much in the middle. What's your favorite part of being a writer? Fleshing out the characters. Making that character come alive so that people say, oh, I wonder what she's going to do next. Oh, is Liana, is she anywhere around? Is Sly going to be doing, is he going to make another appearance? Or you get the people that say, oh, I hate Sly. And then you get the other one say, oh, he's the best man ever. They got a book boyfriend. Yes, they do. That's my favorite part of writing. It's bringing those characters to life. What makes a great story? I would say making the characters jump off the page so that when you're done reading that book, you have a book hangover. You miss that universe. That's what makes a great story. When you close the book and you walk away and you wonder what they're doing now, that makes a great story. Where do you get your ideas from? Oh, I'm old enough that I get them from life. Just you eavesdrop on people at the restaurant. Just all kinds of stuff. What genres do you write? Oh, I write paranormal, fantasy, romance, supernatural. Kind of all blend in there together. I prefer doing, for my tense, the question is, what is your preferred writing tense and point of view? I would say past tense, first person. And why did I start my AuthorTube channel? Well, for a long time, I had a nomadic channel. Then I started putting, I screwed up the algorithm because I started putting a lot of writing stuff on it. So I thought my next step would be moving over and doing AuthorTube or BookTube. So with that, I'm going to say, I'll see you in the next one. Have a great weekend. Or week, according to when this goes up. Bye.